You feel like at first sometimes when you meet people like, oh, this is cool. I'm the one that they trust. I'm the one who they tell these things to. Like they always kind of have all these people against them. And then little bit by little bit over time, you realize, no, they're just an absolute hater and they talk about everybody and they are 110% talking about you because then they introduce you to some of their friends and the vibe is a little off. I don't know, has that ever happened to anybody? If they're talking about everybody to you, they're talking about you to everybody. And it's so obvious. Welcome to Seriously Selfish. I'm your host, Amanda Talajan. Welcome back to Seriously Selfish. Today's guest, do you have anything that you want to say? I totally agree. Today, we're talking about the do's and don'ts of female friendship. This is actually something that I've wanted to do an episode on for a while, but I've needed to gather some data, really think about it, especially because my friendships now have changed a lot from the friendships that I had before I had my child, which no shit, I've changed. So that was going to happen. So I've needed to kind of settle into some new friendships, mom friend friendships, and then decide, goodbye. That was so fun. Maybe she'll be back. I don't know. Talk about female friendship. So let's just get into it. Oh, by the way, all of these are my opinion only. They are what are important to me and what I see as things that create for successful female friendships. Okay, if you disagree, that's totally fine. We're going to start with don'ts. I think that's a strong place to start. Constant competition and hater vibes in a friendship, I feel can go unnoticed for a while. And I find it to be one of the most toxic things that show up after time. And I do believe that if we're really honest with ourselves, we can feel it happening. You can kind of catch that with somebody. They're a little insecure about certain things and they don't necessarily see women as an extension of themselves, because my viewpoint, as I've gotten older and realized pretty much as women, we live on a very similar playing field because we come up against the same things, although what they are in actuality may be different. We live very similar lives. We have similar struggles. We have similar situations that we encounter in the workplace and everything else. So I feel like a lot of my friendships that have kind of crumbled over time are ones where there's a competition living within the relationship. And I don't want that to be confused with the idea of gossiping or having secrecy within a friendship, because I do think as females, it's important for us to have some sort of intimacy that comes with secrecy and being able to be honest about our feelings, talk about things, pop culture, what's going on, events that happen, and a little bit of healthy gossip, which is kind of more from an observer approach or an observer standpoint where you're can you believe this happened? That's so crazy, blah, blah, blah. It's something that does connect us, and you can call it gossip, but there's a healthy form of gossip. And then there's someone who's just constantly talking shit about everybody and constantly comparing everybody to themselves and each other. And I think that really takes root in somebody. And it goes to my theory that I've always had, which is if they're talking about everybody to you, they're talking about you to everybody. And it's so obvious to me now. You feel at first sometimes when you meet people oh, this is cool. I'm the one that they trust. I'm the one who they tell these things to. They always kind of have all these people against them. And then little bit by little bit over time, you realize, no, they're just an absolute hater and they talk about everybody and they are 110% talking about you because then they introduce you to some of their friends and the vibe is a little off. I don't know, has that ever happened to anybody? That's happened to me before, where I meet somebody's group of friends, we're friends, and then they have their group of friends and I walk in and I get this little energy and I'm oh, you were talking about me, or probably sharing things that I wouldn't want everybody to know. And then you realize that there's been a crack in the intimacy, and you realize it's not healthy gossip or just kind of chit chat, and that the intimacy that you think you have with them isn't real, and that they pretty much are emotional vampires who suck information, spread it around town, and that's their vibe, And so I think you have to differentiate what that is. And I think it's hard to spot initially, but I do think that once you get to a certain point in your life, it happens enough times that you're oh, I clocked that. Yeah. So understanding when someone is overly competitive and just a hater, and the difference between healthy gossip, intimacy, and secrecy in a friendship that unites us as women versus the hater vibes, Which also leads me to a second point that is part of that, which is how they are with their siblings. I don't judge people for the way that they were raised, but I do think that it's important to know if they were raised in a competitive household where they were pitted against their siblings, or they were encouraged to see their siblings as part of their team. And I have two sisters, so this is something that I spend a lot of time thinking about because I imagine myself to have more children at some point in my life. And I'm very adamant of the idea to not raise my children thinking that they are each other's competition. It creates for a deep-rooted issue within yourself because your sibling is probably the closest thing you'll ever have to a mirror. They're raised in the same house as you. They experience a lot of things that have to do with life, the same time frame that you do. They are the only person who you can really kind of be like, hey, when that happened when we were kids, is it true? Did you perceive it that way too? It's like really a great reflector for you throughout your life. At least it has been for me. And having two sisters, we were never raised as we were each other's enemies, competition, someone was more important. We were always raised to be viewed that we were on this same team, which means that maybe one of my sisters was having her moment and someone else couldn't do something that they didn't want to, but we were never angry about that because we wanted to support her. She needed her moment. We knew we were going to get ours. There wasn't this thing of like, look what she's doing. Can you do it? Or us, even when we played the same sports or something like that, there was never my parents in the car after being like, she had a good game, you didn't. And we were close enough in age that sometimes we did play on the same teams and whatnot. And I always just felt so proud of them and encouraging of them. And I felt the same for me. And even now in life, we have very different careers. We do very different things. But like, if my sister wants to buy something that I already have, or one of my sisters literally has the same exact car as me. I don't give a shit. She was like, I really like your car. I think I'm going to get the car. I was like, get the car. The car's sick. I love the car. Who cares? You know what I mean? Whereas I've had friends who've had sibling relationships where it's a constant comparison, constant competition. And so then that reflects in their female relationships that they have with other people. I'm sure it's the same for boys. I don't think that this is something that just goes girls or boys, but like, I definitely think that it creates for you to have this mentality that everybody is against you and you kind of have to win. And so I actually had a friendship one time where they were very competitive with each other. And so no one could break any of their rules. Like they had these rules, like you couldn't wear the same things as them and everybody had to check in on this is so fucking crazy to think about now because at this point in my life, because like if I would get a text like that, I'd be like, the fuck, what? Are you kidding? I don't even know what I'm going to wear. I'm going to try and get out of the house on time. Anyway, it led to this thing where it was like there were these rules in the relationship because if you wear that, then I may not shine. And like we have to be very respectful. And it was always under this umbrella of like, these are my boundaries. This is what's respectful. And we all need to be our individual selves. But like if your individual self creeps in too much on my individual self, then this is like a problem. And it led to a lot of anxiety within me when I would be hanging out with them of like, oh, don't like too many things that they like, or don't be too much like this or too much like that. And it was kind of like I had to learn the way that they wanted to be treated because it was so alien to me because my sisters and I are not like that. And so I think that understanding the way that they were raised and the relationships that they have with their siblings is a good indicator as well for something that lives deep within them as to how they just view other people and their relationships with other people. And if they live on that competitive playing field or if they don't. And so I wouldn't say don't be friends with people like that. I would say it's a good thing to understand because then the way that you approach things or things that may be problematic to them may not be problematic to you if you don't view things that way. But it can give you an understanding of how you want to approach that friendship. I'm not friends with those people anymore. I don't think that I had to end that friendship. I think if I would have had the understanding I have now of kind of like, we can't hang out all the time, but like I can show up and respect your boundaries. I may think they're a little kooky, but like, know the place for it. I'm the kind of person where I would jump full on into relationships with people and like have this very closeness with them. And it came very naturally to me. Whereas now I've learned that like not everybody is for everything and we don't have to hang out all the time or like drown ourselves in relationships to have intimacy and closeness. So yeah, watching out for that competitive nature I think is really important. I do want to state, maybe I did already, but just to be very clear, I don't think this is a reason to not be friends with someone, but I do think that it's something that can show up in a friendship. And just because you experience this doesn't mean that you don't get over it at some point or you work through it or you think to yourself, like I know that Dimitri was raised in a house where there was a lot of competition, and we've had so many conversations now of like, do you think that really served you, and how did that take root in your life now of viewing everybody kind of in that way? And I would say that he's let go of a lot of those things and realized that no, that's not necessarily the way you need to view everybody, and it did affect him now, and you can move past it. So I think people can, but I think that sometimes it's not something that I always thought about, and I've come to this conclusion recently, and understanding that has made it easier for me to understand why people behave the way that they do. Oh, be fucking honest. Be honest. Your friend has something in their teeth. They look like shit in that dress. You better tell them. I am so sorry. There's no world that I live in. And maybe this goes back to the sister thing. Like my sisters and I, you can't wear that. You cannot wear that. Not because you're not a beautiful, stunning queen, because that does not show the beautiful, stunning queen within. I'm so sorry. Like, don't set your friends up. You do not have to tell someone that they look amazing all the time for them to feel confident. It is okay. I want you to tell me. Be honest. I think there's a fine line of being like, okay, well, I like it. I don't care. I feel confident in this and I'm going to wear that. That's fine. But if you know your friend doesn't look good or she got a haircut and it's not the best, support her in that. This is not your best haircut. That's okay. We're going to get it fixed. What can we do? There's always solutions, but you don't have to lie. The best thing you can do is find the solution for the problem. Don't hype up the issue and make her think that she's looking amazing. We need to be honest with each other. Same with the food and the teeth and all those kind of things. Like, I know you're real if you tell me. Like, I have a friend who is a new friend who literally the second time we hung out, she was like, you have a booger. And I was like, wow, we are going to be okay. Because thank you so much. What do you mean? You think I want to walk around like this? I wasn't like, oh my God. No. And then I was like, how many places have I been before I came here? And what the fuck? Why didn't anybody tell me? Specifically, I remember FaceTiming my mom in the car before I had gone there. Why didn't she tell me? You don't need to embarrass somebody, but like, how can you stand there next to your friends, seeing them in that way and just like, are you okay? I could never. So yes, being honest, if they're honest with you, if they tell you the hard things. And that also goes on a deeper level of, you know, if you're dating a guy and they get a bad feeling or they see certain patterns that are going on with you, it's not always easy to tell that person. I'm not saying to not be there for them. My best friend could call me a million times with the same issue. She could go through something for an entire year. I will support her. I will be there for her. But every single time, I'm going to be honest with her of what I think she should do. Like, I don't think that it's one or the other. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you can't talk to me about this anymore because you just keep repeating the same cycle. Obviously, those things happen, sure. But being there for each other and having that empathy of like, you're really going through it and you need me to be there for you. But that doesn't mean that we have to condone what's going on. We can have this really strict place in someone's life of saying, I do not support this going on with you. You can talk to me about it, sure, but I'm going to hold a line and tell you I think this is not okay. You know, so it goes for the embarrassing things, but it also goes for the very serious things where they need you to hold space for them and they need you to be honest with them, because if they're continuously talking to you about something, they're looking for you to help them to get out of that. And whatever way they choose, you support them in that, sure, but you got to be honest with your friends. And for me, that's why my circle is very, very small, because I find that people are not always honest. And I just think it leads to a lot of shit talking because they get frustrated because like, I wanted to tell her this, but I didn't. So clock when people are being honest with you, and also clock when they're open to you being honest with them, because I think it's one of the only ways we can have true intimacy with our friendships. As a people pleaser and a very anxious girly, I will say that sometimes like I get into these situations with people where I feel like they're very dominant friendships, like, or they're a dominant friend, you know, and they kind of have like, they're very full steam ahead kind of people. I'm a Libra at heart, truly. And for me, it's like, you want to go to dinner there or there? I don't care. I hate picking where I'm going to eat. I hate picking the vibes. I hate making these decisions about what time, because truly, deep down, I don't give a flying fuck. You want to eat at 9 p.m.? Fine. You want to eat at 4? No problem. Like, I just want to hang out with you. So it's not that I'm great at making plans. I could totally do it. But like, if it comes down to it, you can make the decisions. That's all good. I found myself in some of these friendships where people boss me around, and I kind of enjoy it. I'm not going to lie. Like, I like when someone's like, we're doing this, we're going here, blah, blah, blah. But then it kind of gets to a point with some people, and this is definitely part of their nature and where they already are, where I don't clock it soon enough that they're actually like putting me in this little box and like treating me like a child. I don't know if this is relatable at all, but I've had friendships like that where then I kind of feel like nervous, where like they're in charge and I'm not, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know how to text them back and I don't know what to say, and I feel like they're going to be mad at me, or they play these little games where they won't answer me because they're like punishing me, and or they will only be around in situations where they're kind of like swooping in to help, but they're never there when like things are good, or happy for me when things are good. They're always kind of like, well, it could have been better. Just like this really weird like parent role. And so a big don't for me, if I put this, like tie it up with a ribbon, is someone who is like overly aggressive, opinionated, and has this complex of like needing to be in charge, where it's not kind of like, I like to make plans, she doesn't, no problem. There's a flow that can happen. Like, it's like like when someone's being a bully, you know? And at first it feels like, oh, they're just taking care of me, or like they're always making plans, or they want to see me and all that kind of stuff. But then a little bit by little bit, you realize that they're actually an extremely avoidant person, and this aggressive nature comes out in avoidant people sometimes, where they get really bossy. And then if you do speak up and you're kind of like, oh, I actually don't want to do that, or I can't make it at that time, then they kind of ghost you for a little bit to like punish you. And so I think that it can, like, if you are a people pleaser and you are someone who is kind of more go with the flow, it can create for this really intense dynamic. So now I kind of look at friendships and people, and I try and assess if they have some sort of like power struggle within. That happens sometimes as a result, I know I keep saying it, but like of people's childhood trauma, or the way that they were raised, where they never felt like they were in charge, and then they grow up and now like they need to be in charge of everything, and they are very reactive towards other people not doing what they want them to do. And so I think when you find yourself in those kind of situations, those friendships, it becomes so exhausting, because you always feel like you're trying to please that person, and that's not normal. Okay, that's not okay. People who you are friends with, who you always feel like you have to please them or make them happy or live up to their expectations of you, that's fucking weird. And that's not a good friendship. So I'm not down with people who are holding me to a standard that they've created for me. I know it sounds strange because we're grown-ups, but I do think that sometimes when you are a go with the flow person, you can find yourself like involved with people who behave that way, and you don't realize that it's happening right away. Now I clock it, because I'm like, what do you mean? Or well, you didn't text me back, so I didn't text you back. What the fuck? What are you talking about? That's strange, you know? If I answer you within the same day, I'm a very bad texter. So I know that about myself. I tell everyone that. I've become a bad texter. I used to be way better, but now it's not because I don't want to. It's because I literally open it, go to respond, and some fire breaks out around me. And then I forget. And then at night, I look at my phone and I'm like, oh, right, answer. But then I'm doing other things, and then I get back to you eventually. It's always within the same business day, but like I've just changed. You know, I can't. It's not because I don't want to. It's because I literally cannot. Well, because Jazz doesn't want me to. Okay. Now when I meet people, or people who I'm friends with, if I get that thing of like, you didn't answer me for X amount of hours, like you counted the hours that I didn't answer you, we can't be friends. And I'll say like, I don't think we can be friends, or we can't have a close friendship like that, because you're never going to get that from me, because I literally cannot provide that to you. Also, if you want to talk to me, call me. I know, call me on the phone. So I have my rules. Other people have their rules. But my thing is like, if you're clocking what I'm doing and you are calculating like how long it's been, or like keeping a check on me, I think that's fucking weird.
Keeping a check on you?
You haven't answered me in 3 hours. Sometimes I wish you did.
Sometimes you did?
Chase me around, you know? No, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. A friend to all is a friend to none. I know this is so corny, but it's really true. Like, I think that people can have large friend groups, be acquaintances with a lot of people, but it truly, if you are friends with literally everybody, or someone is, I don't want to say this. Yeah, you know, just like they're friends with everybody. I really question what you stand for, because I think that over time, as we get older, we meet lots of different kind of people, and we are experiencing different kinds of things, and we take a stand on things, and we know how we feel. You can't tell me 50 people feel the same exact way as you in your intimate life. I don't believe it, which means that, like, what do you actually stand for? What do you really believe? And I think that it becomes really hard to have closeness with people like that. And we don't have to live our life exactly the same way, but I'm really looking for my female friendships to reflect honesty, stability, empathy, being there for one another, and also just an encouragement of watching each other grow, understanding this extension of ourselves in other women, and that we do have these similar pain points that we live every single day and similar experiences. And so I am looking for people who stand for things, who are supportive, and who have opinions and give me good feedback. And I think that when you are a friend to everybody, you are a confused person and you don't stand for anything. And I don't judge you for being confused, but I just can't have you in my intimate life because I need people who are strong around me, and I hope to be strong for other people. And I wasn't always like that. I was at some points in my life very much like, I'm cool with everyone. But if I really look at where I was at that point, it's because I didn't really have an opinion about anything and I was figuring it out. And now that I have, I can't play that game. That's something that I think is a don't, and not necessarily just in friendships, but also for us as people. Like, we have to stand on something, we have to believe in things, and we have to know how we feel. And it's okay if people don't agree with you. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is not being okay with having different opinions than other people. And that's something that I think when we get really comfortable with, we live truly into our authentic self, and that creates for the best friendships full of authenticity, which is what we want. You know? Well, that's what I want. I wish that was vodka. I'm just kidding. Actually, I'm not. As a little like intermission between, like, because those are my don'ts, I'm going to go into my do's. I'm going to say friendships as a mom are very complex and complicated. And there's something that there's a conclusion I've come to. My friends who don't have kids do not understand the way my life is right now. They could never understand. They may never understand. Maybe they will when they have children, and we will have that same level of closeness that we had before. I'm not saying I can't be friends with people who don't have kids. I'm saying that what's going on right now in my life, at the age that my child is, and when you are raising young kids in your house and you are learning to balance all of these things and the day-to-day chaos that you're going through, it is very hard for me as a person to relate sometimes. I don't think that my friends who don't have kids' problems aren't real, or that their stress isn't real, because I know that mine was too. I know that before I had children, my stress was real, how overwhelmed I felt, the problems that I had in my life, things that would give me a literal mental breakdown, were all very real to me, because that was my reality and that's all I knew. And so I don't say that you don't get it, just wait, your life is way easier than mine. I don't believe that. I think that we all have our truth, okay? But that also there's another side of that, which is that mine is also mine. My life with a child versus my life without was exponentially different. And so there are things that we just can't relate on. And there's the side of the friends who don't have kids, and then their friend has a kid. For them, I have so much empathy as well. And I was talking to a friend of mine recently who she's like a loose friend, more so work related, but all of her best friends just had kids. But she was like, I feel like I've lost my family. I feel like I've lost my friends. I feel like I don't know what my place is in their life anymore. And I don't know how to be. And she's like, I love spending time with their kids. I love hanging out with them and their kids. But like, I also miss just hanging out with my girlfriends. And I miss just kind of going for a drink or hanging out on their balcony. It always just feels like all they want to talk about is their kids. All that's going on in their life is their kids. And all that they have time for is their kids, or for me to be hanging out with them and their kids. And I was like, that must suck. That must be such a lonely feeling, and also so complex because you don't feel really comfortable being like, can you care about me too? as like new mom who has these young kids at home, who's figuring out her life and clearly has a very chaotic life right now and is balancing so many things, it feels so selfish. And I found her to be so honest, and really I felt so much empathy towards her, because she's like, I know how ridiculous it sounds, but I can't deny that this is truly how I feel. And it got my brain really going, and I just realized that we a lot of times don't know how to ask for our friends' support, especially when they don't have kids, to be like, I need you to show up in these kind of ways. Even when they try, and I've had friends of mine who like have really been there for me, who don't have kids, who show up, come through, they hang out with Jazz, they hang out with me. But when she said that, I was like, wow, they must miss the version of me that can hang out with them one-on-one and like actually give my time and attention. And even though I try really hard to make a point when I hang out with my friends to not only talk about mom life, I think that there's still just this disconnection that I have towards certain things because my brain is functioning in a different way. There's a lot of things that live back here that I know are on my brain constantly, that I have to worry about, that are going on in this chapter of my life that I can't turn off. And I think that missing that friend and missing the way that they were able to just be 110% in it with you is such a real feeling. And so I don't have a solution for how to tend the friendships you had before becoming a mom with your friends who don't have kids yet, or maybe don't want to have kids. All I can say is that if you look at how their life has changed as well, I think it can give you some sort of empathy and be able to find a new way to carry on that relationship. Are you checking in as well? Are you there for them too? And then also asking them what you need. What do you need now from a friendship? And kind of reevaluating what that looks like. As with anything, like everything changes when you become a parent because your whole life has changed. So all of those relationships, everything that's worth it to you, that you want to keep alive in your life, friendships, your relationship with your partner, hobbies that you have, you got to rework the plan and really look at it from both sides. How does that person feel after you've gone through this life change, and how do you feel towards that relationship, and what do both people need for it to be able to function? It's never going to look the way that it did. We've come to that conclusion many times on this podcast. That's okay. It's a beautiful life that we're living, and we have to carry on and evolve and change. But if we want it, we can totally have it. It just needs to be different. I also think mourning friendships that aren't meant for this chapter is so real, and it's okay. Some people need to be let go of. That doesn't mean that they have to be a terrible person. I don't have any resentment towards the people who never came to visit my child, didn't show up for me in the way that I wanted them to postpartum. I'm not angry with them. I just view it kind of like, we had a great time when we did, and now this chapter of life that I'm in, we're not friends anymore, and that's okay. And maybe one day we'll come back together if we start walking a more similar road. But like, I think it's such a healthy place to not be mad at people for not showing up for us in the way that we needed them to, and more so just understanding that we had great times together, and now we're making room for more people that get us now. And as soon as I let go of that, like a lot of the friendships that I was like, you know what, you don't get me in this chapter, and that's okay, I started making so many more friends, and it opened me up to stop thinking about it so much and focusing on like being that person that they knew, and more so embrace the person that I am, which then created for me to have the time and energy and openness to meet people in this chapter of my life. So let it go, be open, understand each other's perspectives, and know what's really worth it to you and what's worth fighting for, and be brave enough to rework the plan and give yourself what you need, you know? And you can spend a little time being mad if you want to, you know? Like, it is frustrating and it's sad and it's disappointing. It is okay. But you got to let it go at some point so that you can open yourself up. Did you just give me snaps? Oh, hey. Okay, the do's. Okay, I have 4 main pillars of female friendships that I'm looking for. Present, supportive, communicative, empathetic. A few years ago, I had this feeling that I was being a very selfish friend. And I talked to my sister, who's like one of the most empathetic, understanding people on this earth. Like, she's the kind of person that whenever she calls you, she's like, hey, how are you? Did you have time to talk? Or like, she'll text before, you know, those kind of people. Amazing. Just so kind. Hold space. All the things. And so we were talking, and I was like, what do you think are pillars of a friendship? And we came to the conclusion of all four of those things. Communicative, if you're upset and you don't like what's going on or you need more from somebody, you don't avoid them, you don't ghost them, you talk to them about it. You're not passive aggressive. You say like, that hurt my feelings and I need this. Empathetic, understanding that that person may need something from you, that although it's tiring for you or annoying and you don't really want to show up for them in that way, you can, because you put yourself in their shoes and you see that their pain is real. Being present with people, understanding when you have time to talk, when you don't have time to talk, knowing what you can give and what you can't give, and sometimes putting aside something that you need so that you can be there for that friend. Oh yeah, and being supportive, like just viewing each other as our own entity and understanding that even though you can't relate whatsoever, you support them and encourage them in their journey, and realize that if they're having success in something, it doesn't mean that you're not. And if they're feeling sad about something that you think is stupid, it's real to them. I know it's like so basic and childish, but it's so important. And I think just as women, it's a hard thing to do sometimes, because we get this little insecurity within us of like, we want something that someone else has, or we find it really hard to support them when they keep going back to the same guy or they keep doing the same thing. And the reality is that supporting your friend and being present, communicative, and empathetic for them means that you're in whatever situation that they're in, and you do hold space for them and you are available to them, but you also know how to toe the line and do the same thing for yourself and ask for the same thing for yourself, so you can stay in a place there's no resentment being formed. You know what I mean? It sounds basic, but I think it's not. And I think it's really hard to do sometimes. I literally wrote on here, it shouldn't be that hard. And I only came to this realization probably like maybe a year ago, where I was like, I don't think that it should be that hard to have female friends and closeness in life. I'm not talking about having 25 friends. I'm talking about having that circle of people who you love and trust and you feel light with. Do you know what I mean? Like my best friend, who we've been best friends since 8th grade, like I could not talk to that girl for 3 months and call her up and it's like nothing even happened. Oh, I was thinking about you, or like this happened, that happened, blah, blah, blah. But there's just so much life that we've lived together and so much understanding, and this knowledge of if she called me at 2 a.m. screaming, crying, throwing up, I would be like, Dimitri, I'm leaving. She needs me. And I know she would do the same for me. But also if I don't talk to her for a month, I know that it's not because she doesn't care about me. It's because she's probably really fucking busy. To me, it's like the easiest relationship I've ever had in my life, because we just understand the flow of life and we've grown up together. And so that's really what I'm looking for in all of my female friendships that I have now, is that it shouldn't be that hard. And the minute that I feel like it's really hard and complicated, that thing of like, I don't know what to say, or I feel like they're mad at me all the time, or I feel like they're kind of, I feel like they talk about people a lot, or things are shady and weird, I'm like, it doesn't need to be this hard. That's just kind of like my overall motto. It shouldn't be this hard. I shouldn't feel this complex about it. It should be easy peasy, and we should just be kind of vibing. Do you know what I mean? And I've found that now. And I think that you have to have like your solid rules of like what you want. But if you are in a friendship or a few friendships right now and you just feel like it's always so freaking hard, it doesn't have to be. And it probably just means that it's not working. You're not in the same chapter of life. You guys don't see things the same way. You don't have the same value system right now. And maybe it's time to like stop putting so much pressure on the situation and move on. Another one of my do's is we don't have to cut people off. We can just take breaks. And I think it can happen really naturally. I have friends right now where I love them so much and I know that they love me and I'm very supportive of them and what they're doing, but I can't be available to them the way that I used to. So there was no grand, like, you know, angry like blow up or anything. It's just kind of been this slow burn of like, we're just kind of doing our own things right now. And I think that that is so underrated. That behavior is so underrated when it comes to female friendships. Maybe it's just my experience, but I always feel like it's this like big blow up and everybody has to cut each other off. Sometimes it's okay to not let it get to that point and just be like, you know what? I don't feel like we have that much in common right now. Like internally, you decide that and you just kind of start doing your own thing. And you check in sometimes, you wish the happy birthdays, you send a little like thinking of you do all the things, but you know that you're not as close as you used to be. And I think that creates at least it has for me, created for me to feel so much more joy in my life, because I don't have to have these like big dramatic like we're not friends anymore. It's just like, oh, I don't really see them that much anymore. Like I'm kind of busy and they're busy and we're doing very different things, and like if I see somebody they know or whatever, it's like tell them I said hi, and or I saw somebody we know and it made me think of you, and whatever, like just having it all kind of flow. And so it doesn't need to be that hard and it doesn't need to be that dramatic. Sometimes it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? Like just letting things like waves. Sometimes I really annoy myself. My last two do's. One is allowing each other to work the problem to infinity. I think that it's a very important component of female friendships. This is something that my sisters and I do all the time. Like we will literally talk about the same thing over and over and over again. And now my close friends that I have, it's the same. It's like there's this one thing that's going on and it's a problem, and like we've talked it around the circle 15 times and we're like, okay, like then we move on to a different topic. But one little thing comes up, one little thing changes, one new piece of information, one new realization, and we work it all the way back around again. And it doesn't get tiring because it's like we're trying to get to the conclusion. And sometimes it's mutual and sometimes it's one person's. And so for me, it's like if I have a friend who does need to work something out for an extended amount of time, being open to that, and having them be open to the same. And I think that very much ties into this idea of being communicative. Of course, at some points it gets to be too much, but I also think that knowing that you have somebody on your side who is visibly watching you like work something out, it's a very intimate feeling that you get that I think you can only really get from your female friendships. I don't think that you can get that in your marriage, only because it's just different. Girls are just different. Like you can just carry on about the same thing over and over and over again. And you really need that space to be able to get it. And I had one friend where it was a very specific situation. I'm not going to say anything about it, but it was like, we talked about it for 6 months straight. 6 months straight. And there were times where I would text her and be like, I can't do it today. Like, I can't talk about this today. You got to just like go through everything we've already talked about and like see if you come to a new conclusion. That was me setting a boundary because maybe that day I couldn't get on the phone and have the chat, or I didn't have the mental capacity to do it. But for 6 months straight, we went round and around and around, and then it was over. And then she figured it out. She made her decision. And you know what? She was happier than ever. But like, that's what she needed from me. That is a very important quality of this, being able to work it to infinity. That's it. As simple as that. Being open to that for them so that you can also have people be open to that for you. And I know that we've all needed that at points. And it's not getting frustrated with your friend. It's being honest with your friend. Picking up the phone when you can, and also saying when like today you just can't. You know what I mean? You don't have to martyr yourself and be this like overly available person. But yeah, let your friend like go through something for 6 months, a year. It's okay that they have that. It's okay that they're having a shitty year, and it's okay that they need to talk about the same thing over and over and over again. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it. You can still hold the boundaries, but yeah, I think it's an important quality. Final do for me is being open to having openness. And I don't mean that in a word salad way. I genuinely mean like being open to your friend and their truth. And just as much as we love to feel seen and heard by each other, I think that sometimes in female friendships I've experienced where you feel like you have to like be careful what you say. And I think to have true intimacy, it's important for you to lay down a groundwork of almost like invisibility with each other, where you hype your friend up, they hype you up. You see each other as extensions of yourselves, and you create this true community within your relationship. We don't have to agree on everything. I don't have to necessarily tell you that. Like, I can tell you if I find something that you're doing crazy, but I'm also open to you. Like, I'm also someone who you can always come to no matter what the situation is. And I think that creates long-term friendships, and it really creates for you to feel safe within a friendship, because No one in my life right now do I think to myself I'd call them and I'm like, oh, they're going to be so mad at me about this. I just think like, I'll be like, I know how you feel about it already, but I got to talk to you about it again. My last do is be open to having symmetry with your friends. I don't know if that makes sense, but what I mean by that is it's okay to have friends who aren't exactly in the same chapter of life as you, but I think it's just as important to be open to making friends who are in the same chapter of life as you. It will help you to feel seen and heard, and it will help you to be able to have that village that you're looking for, even if it's just a phone call or whatever, because we need to feel validated in our pain, in our struggle, in our happiness, and we need it from people who can relate. So be open to meeting people outside of the box that you're in, especially if you don't feel supported or you don't feel like anybody really gets you. It's probably because it's time for you to open yourself back up and meet people who are in similar chapters of life as you. It will help you to be your best self, and it'll help you feel confident in this chapter and also work through some of the things that you're going through, because they're going to get it. They're going to get it. I think it's very important to note that even if someone is in the same chapter of life as you, they may not always be your person. Because for me, I know that I'm very brash about motherhood. I know I'm very honest. I know I say things that suck and like whatever, but I'm sorry if I'm coming to you being like, my 2-year-old is literally losing his mind on a daily basis and like whatever. And you're like, my kid never cries. My kid never says no. Okay, we can't be friends. Okay, so, decipher. Be very clear with yourself of like what you are looking for in a friendship, and people who are able to be open and honest. And that's my conclusion. I want to know what you think. I want to know what your do's and don'ts are in female friendships. I want to know how you're feeling in this chapter of your life. Have you gone through a period of time where you shed a lot of friends and you made new ones? Are you feeling lonely right now? Like, where are you at? Because I think the complexity of finding new friends as a mom and kind of going through a transition period with your friendships after you have kids is such an interesting topic to me and concept. And a lot of the things that I cared about before I became a mom in friendships versus now are very different. And I want to know how you feel. And if you found your way back to people who you weren't friends with before, or you have made all new friends, or where you're at. That's pretty much it. Proud of you. You're never alone. We're all just figuring it out. And above all, not everybody's going to be for every chapter, but that doesn't mean that you are not deserving of so much beautiful friendship and belonging in your life among like-minded people who can be there for you and part of the village that you're creating for yourself. You deserve that. And don't forget to stay seriously selfish. Bye.